Are you starting a packaged food business and you're trying to get your product made by someone else? And so you've heard the term copacker and private label, and you're wondering if that's for you and what that means as far as licensing if you're going to go with one of those options. For the best packaged food advice, please subscribe to the Food Business Success channel by clicking below, and also click on the bell to be notified every time I put out a new video all about starting and growing a packaged food business. I've actually been getting this question a couple of times from potential clients, people jumping on a call with me. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to go ahead and address this question because clearly it's something that you guys want to know more about. Be sure to watch this video to the end to get the explanation of the two and why you might choose to go with one of these types of manufacturers and what kind of licensing you're going to need as the food business and the brand. Hey there, I'm Sari Kimbell. I am the founder and creator of Food Business Success, and I have helped hundreds of packaged food business entrepreneurs start and grow a profitable food business, including getting onto major grocery retailer shelves. Comment below and let me know what type of business you are thinking about starting. I love to hear all about your delicious ideas and be able to make videos that will really help you start and grow that business. All right, so let's jump in and talk about the difference between a co-packer and a private label manufacturer. A co-packer or co-manufacturer, or as we say in the biz, your co-man, is typically going to be another food brand who owns their manufacturing, and they make a product for themselves and they want to diversify their income. So not all co-packers will make all products by any means. So you want to look for co-packers who make similar products to you because they are going to own all of the equipment to be able to make and package that product really, really efficiently in very large quantities. A lot of times people don't use co-packers right away. They're going to make their product themselves, and then once they scale up and they get a little bigger, they will look at using a co-man or co-packer. I do have clients who use co-packers right from the start, but keep in mind that they are going to have what are called MOQs, minimum order quantities, and sometimes these can be quite high. It really just depends on the co-man facility and what they what they decide are those MOQs. So definitely shop around, see if, especially if you're just starting out, try to find someone who does have lower MOQs. You are going to pay more per unit, of course. The more that they produce, the more, the larger your order is. Typically, you're going to see a price per unit drop and come down, but at least it can be a way to get you started if you really don't want to make the product yourself. So you definitely want to look for co-manufacturers who are making similar products as you because, like I said, they're going to own the equipment that'll speed things up tremendously, creating those efficiencies. So if you're making a barbecue sauce, for instance, look for other co-packers who are making sauces like ketchup, barbecue sauce, maybe hot sauce, but spaghetti sauce, that kind of thing, because they're going to have the right equipment. Using a co-manufacturer, a lot of times why people want to go with that is because you can take advantage of greater efficiencies of scale and a lower price per unit, but you may have to order a lot more. So certainly some products are going to lend themselves better to this kind of situation, shelf-stable products that have a long shelf life versus a dairy product or something like that that does not have a very long product life. The other way that you can take advantage of efficiencies of scale is to be able to sort of piggyback on their purchasing power with your ingredients and packaging and things like that. So in an ideal world, you're able to get something what we call inventory on demand. This is great for you as a food brand if you can find a co-packer who will do inventory on demand. This basically is where you just say, I want 1,000 units of this product, and they purchase all of the inputs. They purchase the ingredients, they purchase the jars, they already have the labels on hand. The reason why this is great is because you are not holding any unmade inventory, right? You're not holding a bag of flour or a pallet of tomato sauce or something like that. You're not buying 5,000 jars and then you have 2,000 left over in this example. So that is the ideal situation, but when you're just starting out and on a smaller scale, a lot of times you are going to have to provide your own ingredients sometimes, or even your own packaging. It's just going to kind of depend on the co-packer and whether they're already purchasing similar packaging, similar ingredients, but definitely try to negotiate that in to be working towards inventory on demand and to be taking advantage of their purchasing power at those wholesale and lower rates because they're buying such large quantities for themselves. The other reason why I think you might want to use a co-packer or co-man is because you want to focus your time on other parts of your business, or frankly, you have another job, right? A lot of the people I work with have a full-time job that they love. They like working that, but they just like the side hustle too. And so you don't have time to make your product, package the product, sell the product, do all the things, right? So going to a co-packer is definitely going to free up your time to focus on other things. I have some people who just don't really enjoy making their product, but they love selling their product. So that would be another reason why you would want to use a co-manufacturer. So you might be wondering why on earth or how this works that you would entrust a similar product, a similar brand with your prized recipe, right? That is like your amazing barbecue sauce recipe that you don't really want to give it to another barbecue sauce manufacturer. Well, the reality is that there are what's called NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality agreements. A good co-packer is going to have a rock solid NDA, and frankly, it's in their best interest to be able to have a great reputation and to keep doing co-packing, to not, copy your recipe. But you do want to shop around and you want to ask for, other people's opinions, try to get reviews. Make sure it's a good fit and that you have a good feeling about that co-packer, because you are ultimately entrusting them, with your secret recipe and something that might make your product really unique over their own. But it is something that you're going to have to do ultimately to be able to work with a co-packer. One way that you can get around some of that, if you really don't want to disclose like certain spice mix blends and spice mixes, is you could make that yourself, pack up huge quantities of the spice blend, for instance. You would have to do that out of a commercial kitchen, or you could have a different co-packer do that for you, just the spice blend, and then you could give that to the co-manufacturer making your actual sauce. So sometimes people do want to get around it that way, where you're having two different entities who aren't talking to each other making a part of the product, but obviously there's some other expenses involved in that. Now, remember that they are not there to change your recipe in any way, and ultimately you are the one in charge of your quality assurance, your QA. So what's going to typically happen, the first run, they're going to charge you more money for that very first run because it's kind of their test, right? It's how they're going to set it all up. They're going to make sure it all works. They're going to follow your recipes and your instructions, and they're going to make a smaller batch so that you're going to then do your taste testing and quality assurance to make sure that it is to your liking and fits your product, right? That it's consistent with the product that you want to have on the shelves. So just know that there will be kind of an upfront setup fee, and then once everything's been ironed out with the quality and you're happy with it, then you can go, then you'll start going into you just pull the trigger on your order Like I said, there might be a hybrid. If you need to provide some of the ingredients or packaging, they might be ordering some of it. It just kind of depends on each situation. All right, so then let's talk about what a private label product is. And I am sure that you actually know what this is. You may just have not heard the term. I know before I started working at Whole Foods, I never really understood what private label meant. But basically, we see it all the time, right? It's the 365 everyday brand at Whole Foods. It's the Kroger brand, the Safeway brand. Probably the most well-known would be the Trader Joe's brand, because they do a ton of private label, where other manufacturers who make the exact same product, right? Let's say it's a nut butter. They're probably making their own nut butter under their own label, and then they're also making that same nut butter, or maybe they're tweaking the recipe just a little bit, and they're putting that Trader Joe's label on it instead. It's the same manufacturer that's just slapping a different label on that product. But with private label, you know, not everybody's going to want to have you competing with their exact product out in the same market space. But for instance, my brother-in-law actually wanted to start a hot sauce company. He didn't really know how to make hot sauce. He really didn't have an interest in making it himself. He just wanted the hot sauce. He had a great idea for branding, for a label, for a name of the product, and he felt like he could get on Amazon and do that e-commerce thing really well. So he found a company that made their own hot sauce that would also just make like this exact same hot sauce and put his label on it as private label. So it kind of just depends on what your goals are. I mean, a lot of people that I work with are very passionate about their recipe. It's something that they've developed. They don't want to just use somebody else's, but it kind of depends, you know, that you might have goals of you just love hot sauce and you have a great way of differentiating yourself and think that you can make some money. So it's a different kind of business model and certainly a different intention going into it. But it definitely is an option for you to consider private label. Again, depending on your product type, it's not going to work well for all types of products. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to check out my other videos on food business success, including my series on how to be more profitable and really maximize your profit as a small food brand. So I want to talk about just a couple of other quick things to keep in mind when you are working with either types of manufacturing. So remember, both of them are going to have MOQs, your minimum order quantity. So when you hear that term, now you know what it means. And so they're going to have like, you have to come in at 500 units, and here's the price per unit. And then if you go up, you know, from there, then your price per unit will typically drop. The other thing I want you to consider is you do need to think through storage and also distribution. Again, depending on your product, whether it's shelf stable, how it needs to be stored, if it needs to be under refrigeration or even frozen, you need to be sure that that manufacturer does have that space, or you're going to have to get a different space as well. So obviously your product, you're going to get a large quantity of product and you need a way to store that to keep it safe and fresh and you know, ready to eat and healthy for your customer. So you want to look into, some facilities do have storage that you can pay for. Some of them also have distribution options. So like I mentioned, the coffee roaster, that coffee roaster in California is going to roast it, package it, and store it, and then they're actually also going to fulfill the e-commerce distribution, or they might even do the distribution to like a warehouse, to Amazon, or to a grocery store distribution center. So depending on your needs, look into co-manufacturers or private label groups that will do some of that storage and or distribution. That'll save you a lot of moving the product around. But that said, you are going to, if you're going to hold any product, there are some regulations that you need to be aware of. So that's going to lead me into talking about licenses and regulations and what that means for you as a food brand if you're using a private label or co-manufacturing. So each state is going to be a little bit different. So you're going to want to look into your wholesale licensing. Start with your wholesale. Again, depending on the product type, you might need a county license as well. But typically, if you're doing these large scale shelf stable products, a lot of times you can just start with your wholesale license through the state. So that's where I'd recommend you start. But like I said, it's going to be a little bit different for each state. But that said, the FDA is the one who's going to oversee the transportation of food. And they have an obligation, and you have an obligation to report to them what the food cycle, that food life cycle is. So the FDA wants to know where the product is being made, where it's being held, and so if somebody were to get sick, that they can find the product, find out where it's been. So if you are going to hold product away from the manufacturing facility, you're going to move it somewhere else. Sometimes that's even your home, your garage, your basement, as long as it's clean and sanitary. Then you are going to need to register with the FDA as a warehouse and indicate where that's at. And then with the state as well, oftentimes you want to check with your state, with your wholesale license, to see if you also need to register as a warehouse. And, basically your manufacturer, you don't need to get a wholesale license as a manufacturer because you're not manufacturing the product. But if you are storing the product, then you would need that license through your state if applicable. So that said, let's take the coffee roaster example. So this person was in Colorado. The coffee was going to be roasted in California. The roaster is going to hold all the product. They are going to store the product, and they're going to ship the product on this person's behalf. So that business does not need a wholesale license, a food license of any kind. I would definitely recommend setting up a business like an LLC or an S Corp. And I do have a video about that and why you might want to do that. But essentially, if you're not holding any product, you are just a business entity and you're basically reselling it. Reselling that product. And so that's totally fine. You can start an e-commerce site and do that and have it just get dropped, it's drop shipped from that warehouse in California. So you don't need any food licenses per se. You might need a business license. Check with your county and even your city to see what kind of business license. And then also your sales tax license, because you're purchasing that product from the manufacturer wholesale, so they're not charging you taxes. So you need to be sure if you're selling it to the end consumer, like an e-commerce, that you are charging appropriate sales tax if you're state, county, city taxes on food. So you want to be sure and check that out. The other thing to consider is on your packaging. You want to be sure that it says manufactured for or just distributed by, and then your business name. Again, there needs to be a way for the FDA to be able to track your product, and so they need your contact information because you're the seller, not the manufacturers. That said, you need to be sure on your website or that there is some way to contact you. So if you don't have a website, you're going to need to put more information on the packaging about how to contact you. Or if you have a website and there's a place where people can contact you and ask you questions if something went wrong, then you can just put the name, like your LLC, your business name, and then the city, state, and zip code. Now, I have seen some co-manufacturers or private label, especially producers, they may want you to put their business name on there that says, made by whatever company. That is not required by the FDA. That may be something that they require. So you need to decide if that's important to you or not. Not everybody's going to do that or require that. But that is voluntary. That is not required per the FDA to be on your label. You don't need to list your manufacturer as long as you can provide the information if someone were to get sick. So you just want to think about if that's something that you're willing to do, if it's a big deal to you to kind of show you're basically telling people that you're not making the product yourself. So that's a decision for you to make, but it's not required by the FDA. Just a reminder to please pick up my 10 mistakes and how to avoid them free PDF below. You don't want to make these mistakes, so go and check that out. Again, please like, subscribe, comment on this video. It helps me tremendously as I grow the Food Business Success YouTube channel. And finally, if you are interested in joining a community of like-minded food business entrepreneurs, as well as getting your questions answered quickly and correctly, I want to invite you to join me at foodbizsuccess.com and join our monthly membership coaching program. You get 2 live calls with me a month, as well as 24/7 access to me through our private community group and a free bonus resource. You can go over to foodbizsuccess.com and sign up there. I would love to help you flatten your learning curve and make your food business real.